Today I want to talk about basically the circle of life, the balance of life. Now, hear me out, people. Let's take the tree. Let's take nature for what it is. Now, a tree, let's start at the beginning of winter, after it has shed its leaves from the previous season. It goes into a state of dormance almost as the winter gets colder, as the ground freezes, as its roots freeze, and as it's lost its leaves from the previous season, the tree goes dormant. The tree goes into a state of suspended animation in a sense. And it basically just has to sustain and survive the winter in which it's going to endure. Now, during this process, during this time, the tree is basically almost dead in a sense. It's in a state of basically limbo. It's only surviving. It's only withstanding the harshness of winter. Now, winter goes through many bouts, goes through many harsh storms, blizzards, many bouts of harsh, bitter cold, wind, high winds. But this tree that is now basically dormant has to withstand itself and survive through this winter. Eventually, of course, winter subsides and spring begins. And spring is always a rebirth. It's always a renewal. Now, during the time, the ground thaws. And of course, water starts to basically penetrate, starts to reabsorb through the rain of the springtime. And it starts to rejuvenate the tree back into life in a sense. The sap starts flowing through the veins of the trees. It reaches to the outer branches back into the tree. And then it causes growth. It just rejuvenates new growth of leaves. Then these leaves start to grow through the tree. And as they grow, they turn green, rich green, full of chlorophyll, and which receives the photosynthesis from the sun. And in a sense, basically nourishing back the tree, giving it the much needed sustenance in life in which it was deprived for the winter. And during this process, of course, too, the tree is also breathing again. The leaves are starting to breathe, and they're breathing in carbon dioxide from all the animals on Earth that expel oxygen to carbon dioxide, basically purifying the Earth because it breathes out fresh oxygen back into the world itself. So this is the function. This is the purpose of that one leaf on the tree. Now, through the season, of course, it enriches the tree, provides nutrients, provides sustenance to the tree, but eventually the tree starts to bear fruit, and this fruit eventually is in the fruit in which the tree it came from, providing nourishment and food for the animals, for us basically, depending on the species of tree, of course. But now this whole season starts to take place again, because then autumn begins again. Now that one leaf eventually starts to basically die. It starts turning bright yellow, bright red, maybe auburn. It turns a really vibrant color because of its foliage. And it may be briefly a color before it turns brown and then falls to the ground. Now that's not the end of the journey of this leaf. No, not necessarily. This leaf still has a function. Even in its death, its decomposition, its breakdown, starts to basically break down and starts to nourish the soil through the fertilization of its decomposition, providing more nutrients for the soil around it, basically giving food back to the tree itself in just another renewable source of life. Now, eventually, as this tree, of course, and as these leaves on the ground die and provide the nutrients back into fertilizer, they break down even further, eventually returning back to topsoil. It's coming back to the earth, constantly renewing itself, basically from the water and the light from the sun. These two simple components basically are the essence of the earth. And this cycle continues year after year, era after era, for eternity as we know it. Now, that goes back to the purpose of us as individuals. Now, somehow we're supposed to just take these lessons in which I just said and learn and to kind of translate it into our own life and how our meaning into our own life works. We're individual humans. We're just people. We're just individual people. Just as those individual leaves in a tree had a whole cycle of purpose, even well beyond its death, it still provided a certain sustenance in order which it sustained life. Now, how do we, as man, as humans, do this in our own right? Well, it's all through our deeds, obviously. Of course, a lot of us grow, we develop. Sometimes we get married, we have children, we have families, and our legacy is what we pass down to our children and our children's children. And the deeds, the lessons, the morals in which we instilled in them are passed on to our future generations. These are some of the ways our legacy is built, but sometimes it's just in who we are individually. Our deeds, our presence in life, and just the way we communicate, the way we are on this earth, hopefully will pass down future generations of inspiration for them to follow in some way, shape, or form. That's basically my message today, is that even though we just are an individual person, we all have something to offer this world. We all have some kind of legacy. And even well beyond our demise, our legacies can live on, depending on the integrity in which we provided. Well, people, this is Tom, and this is the INFJ experience, and I want to thank you for hanging around with me this long and listening to my story here that I had to say. All right, well, thank you, people. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.